Welcome back, radio entrepreneurs, listeners, and fans. I'm producer Jillian King, and I'm excited to introduce you all to the Fall 2025 FBA Family Business Panel discussion. What does success look like in 2025? In this segment, we will be exploring topics to help you build your great family business. Today, we have two returning panelists that you should know well: Stephen Wilchins, founding partner at Wilchins, Cosentino and Novins, and Richard Hirschen, partner at Gray Gray. We are also joined today by Martin Lowenthal, macroeconomic life and financial advisor to business owners with the Bulfinch Group. Welcome. Glad you all can be with us today. Next, I'm excited to introduce our guest panelists: Bill Tracia, president and founder of NBM, and Amie Geary, vice president of NBM. NBM is New England's leading provider of office technology and managed technology services. Welcome all. Finally, I would like to introduce the panel's moderator and a Radio Entrepreneurs host, CEO of Mage LLC, Jeffrey Davis. Welcome, Jeffrey. I will now hand the conversation over to you.
Thank you, Jillian, and thank you for continuing to organize all of us and our continued stories that we've run over the last year of what does it take to be successful in 2025. And I want to thank ahead of time my panel and also Amie and Bill. Amie and Bill, we're going to start by throwing the first pitch right at you. And, you know, usually in family business, people believe that there's something unique to the family that they try to maintain over generations. And I'm wondering if you could sort of talk about that. What made your business sort of unique, you know, maybe from your parents, that's been passed on that you try to maintain in your business?
Well, I guess I'll take that one. We are very unique that our success came from, nurturing a company from one customer and growing the company into a $35 million corporation. My parents were both very hard workers and worked for other companies, so there was really no secret sauce that came from my upbringing that I carried forward. Hopefully from where I'm sitting today to Amie and my son Nick, they're learning that secret sauce as we speak.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so Dad started the company 40 years ago, and so he started with nothing, and this is what he knew, and so he went and thought he could do it better, and he did. So he started with a partner and one employee. And so 40 years later, obviously we're a very, very different business, but I think the secret sauce is, really hard work and work ethic and customer service. So, that's carried us forward through the years. That's what I've learned through working here the last, 12, 13 years. And there's a lot of different factors that go into running a successful business, but for us, it's kind of back to basics, and that's where my dad. That's how he's been so successful over the years, and that's how we brought it forward as well.
Does your dad still work in the business at all?
Sure does.
Yes, I do. But I do feel the hand on my shoulder.
Okay, good.
But I'm very busy. I love the game of business. Grown the business, like Amie says, been 40 years. So happy to see two of my 4 children every day and watching them thrive in the business. So hopefully at some point I will start to pull back and set them up on some type of performance incentive plan that can keep the business running and keep the profitability of the business at the levels that it operates on today.
Unless someone has another question, you just triggered me, Bill. I'm sorry. I was out on a fishing trip yesterday, my first, and it was with, from what I know, a nationally renowned physician. And he was talking to me, and he said to me, the thing that worries him the most is the death of meritocracy. And you just mentioned, performance incentives for family members. And I've heard this before from other families that I've worked with that are really successful, and they talk about meritocracy. And I believe in merit. I believe people have to work for what they earn. Has that always been your rule, or is that something you've just had to just evolve into at this particular point of time? And I'll even add a little caveat, a little spice to it. Have you had to make exceptions?
I think it's always been my role in regards to growing the business. I have key employees with me for over 38 years. Probably half my company's been with me over 10 years. So we empower our people to make decisions, business decisions. Business decisions are always gray. They're never black and white. So as long as they always had a good reason for making that decision, I stood by the decision. In hard work, they see I lead by example, and they see myself and my children in here before 8 o'clock every day and working past 5. When I first started the business, it was more like coming in at 4:30 in the morning and working until 7, 8 o'clock at night. So I'm enjoying the time I have now.
Anybody on the panel?
Yeah, I had a question about how is it that you can bring your daughter and your son in the business and still maintain the relationship with some key people and to grow the business? That's always a very tricky situation when you're bringing family members in.
It is, Steve. I agree. And I have always told my children when they first came here that they will be judged by their last name, good or bad. So if you're successful, a lot of times your key employees or some of the employees might think it's because of your last name. So I was very careful of that when I brought my son, Nick, started with me first. He came in. I remember him graduating from Fairfield University, and he wanted to take the summer off. And, I told him, I said, well, we have one of our best territories open now for a salesman. You better jump on it before the 4th of July. It might not be here. So he did. He took my advice, jumped on it, and it happened to be one of the worst territories in the company. And he's thrived. He's done very, very well. We're probably the number one dealer in that territory, and it's pretty far west of us. So how we roll.
Okay.
Can I follow up with a question?
Yes, sure.
Sarah, forgive me if I missed this. Bill thinks it's very interesting to listen. Do you have any other kids that aren't in the business? And Amie, do you have kids in the business who aren't coming in the business? And if so, how's the family dynamic between the cousins? Because it can, we do see some tensions build up. It's a normal thing.
Yeah, so my kids are young. They're middle school age, so that's a long, long ways away, and I don't know. I don't know what we'll do at that point, and if there's even an interest there. But I do have. So Nick and I are in the business. We have 2 sisters who are not, and they are both in the medical profession. Both been nurses, nurse practitioner, and my other sister is a nurse with a master's degree in nursing administration. So that's really something they were always passionate about. They never really were interested in the business. And so, that's just kind of how it worked out. But they always had the opportunity to come in if they wanted to. And for me, I took a different path than my brother. My brother came right out of college and directly started working in the business. I'm actually a lawyer. And so I went to law school. I practiced for a long time with firms. I had my own law practice. And then after I had children, that's when I decided to have my own law practice. And I did so within the building here. And I just started kind of assimilating myself naturally into the business and took on more and more responsibility. And then, there were places that we needed some leadership and some things that I could bring from a data security perspective. And so I did. And so now I run our whole network division, in addition to a lot of other things. But that's my path was a little bit more roundabout. And if you had asked me truthfully, 15, 20 years ago, if I thought I'd go into the business, the answer would have been no. So I went to law school. I thought I would do something very different. And then once I was here, I saw opportunity and really enjoyed it. And so that's why I'm here now. So it's we're not all in it, but we all had the opportunity to be in it. So
yeah, all my children always played here. They played in the warehouse from the ages of 5, 6 years old and up. So they all knew the business, knew what the business was about. Amie, I recruited Amie. I talked her into coming on board initially to run my leasing company. Millennium Capital Leasing is a leasing company that we started, and they finance a lot of our equipment. So Amie spearheaded that with a law degree. It was a big help. And then she kind of segued into other responsibilities, and the managed network service was an area that we really weren't getting any traction until Amie got here. And Amie, what she brought to the table was the ability to have a C-level conversation with an individual at a company and understand the business process.
Excellent. So what would happen if one of your children wanted their spouse to be involved with the business or work in the business? Has that been discussed at all?
So I've always been a believer from the day I started the business. I had a partner, and we both believed that I didn't want to work for his wife, nor did he want to work for my wife. And so we just had that rule that there were no wives working for the business. As far as children were concerned, we're open to that fact. We can just, if they could make a contribution, they could work. So you have to be a productive citizen of the village.
I think today we still share that same, I share that same sentiment, and my brother does too. It's kind of separation of church and state, and we wouldn't want to be in a tough position where it would affect our family life.
I'll jump in again. I'll always take a free moment. I'm going to go back to you, Bill. You mentioned going to work very early in the morning. And I remember being trained by my father. He'd put me, first of all, I'd come into my bedroom at about 5 a.m. and he'd say, get in the car, 5:15. Now, maybe Martin had the same experience because we both had that hardcore fathers training us at family business. Do you feel that there's something that's been lost in terms of the work ethic from generation to generation?
I do. I'm a believer this is a COVID hangover that we're living over the last 5 years. That this new generation, very bright, articulate, but not very driven. I think it's more caused from being at home, working at home. I think businesses have realized that. Now they're forcing their employees to come back to work. I just happened to be with a group of people this weekend, and they mentioned their daughter was complaining, that she had to go back to work 3 days a week. And difficult that is. So yes, I've always been an
impressive.
So you know me. I mean, I've been an early riser. I get up early, always did, always will, I guess. It can be a curse on a Saturday or Sunday, but...
Are you still the first one in?
No, not anymore. My vice president, Laura Bray, she's usually here around 5 o'clock in the morning. We have a fitness center here, so some of my employees get in early, work out, and go to work. But she's at her desk by 6:30. Same with some of the others. They're here by 7. I roll in 8 o'clock now. I'm
so late. And by the way, he's not talking about Nick and I in terms of generation not working hard.
No.
Yeah. He's talking about the new generation coming out of college.
Bill, you mentioned COVID and how it impacted the workforce, or maybe how they work. But I'm guessing that had a pretty significant impact on your business with the type products you're selling and things you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that, of how you got through those times and long term, how that's going to impact things?
It did, Richard. When COVID hit, we went from probably 80 employees down to 14 employees. And we kept the business open because we're an essential business. We're servicing the federal government. We're servicing cities and towns, fire departments, police departments. So we're here. And Amie, Nick, myself, all my upper-level managers were here. Work in the warehouse. Steve Wilchins is one of my customers. He probably saw me delivering toner for him in those dark days. They were very, very dark days. We pulled out of it, and very happy to see people coming back to the office. I no longer complain about traffic. I embrace it because it was like a ghost town when you were coming to work in March of 2020, April. There was nobody on the road. So it was scary.
And we, that year was, of course, tough from a business perspective, as it was for most industries. But we bounced back the next year, and we were, unlike our competitors, one of the few businesses to actually, in our industry, to keep working. And so we brought our employees back earlier, I think, than most businesses. We had most of our employees were back here by May.
Yeah.
And so we had furloughed them just for that short time so we could figure out, what was going on. And really being in the service industry, in-person service industry, there just wasn't anything they could do. So it was, we really had no choice there. But a lot of our competitors actually pretty much closed.
They shut it down?
Yeah. And so we were able to really grow that following year at the expense of our competitors. They weren't able to get parts. They weren't able to get supplies. We had a manufacturer that was well-positioned and was able to, we were still able to deliver machines, order the supplies, parts that were available. Other manufacturers, that wasn't the case. And so a lot of our competitors, some of them closed, because they couldn't figure out how to handle that during that period of time.
Anyone else on the panel have a follow-up question before this segment's done?
I wanted to ask you a question about the issue with your people that are non-family members. And we touched on it before. How do they, Bill, you've had some key people that have stayed with you for a long time because of who you are. How will that play out as Amie and Nick take more and more responsibility, and how do you position that?
Well, my children are very respectful, and they were very respectful of the key employees. They knew their name. They heard their names through the years. So they were mentors, and they still are today to them in training. The key thing about succession planning is that it relieves them of the burden of worrying about what would happen to me if I was to go away today. Where Nick and Amie are here, they've been here 13 years now. This business will thrive when I'm gone. They'll have more latitude to do the things that I always seem to be the brake or the anchor on, so they can fly with their thoughts.
Good.
I think it helps too. Just we've been here now for a long time. There are really high expectations of us. I think my dad's gone the opposite way than I think a lot of parents go when they have their children in the business. I feel like I work really hard, and the expectations are very, very high because of my last name. And so, we've formed relationships with all our senior management team independently at this point. And not only that, they know what the future of the business is. They know, who's going to own the company. They know, what the plan is. And, that makes them, as Dad said, more comfortable. So they know if something ever happens that the business is still here and they will still have a job.
And I think a lot of our family businesses make the mistake of bringing their children and creating a position for them in marketing and paying them a CEO's salary.
Yeah.
What do you learn at that point? You learn nothing about the value of money, the value of the business. So they've worked very hard, and very proud of all four of my children, especially Nick and Amie, working in the business.
Well, I want to thank you. And this is the end of our first of three segments. I'm going to turn the interview over to our producer. Looking forward to our next segment. Jillian.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That wraps up part 1 of this fall 2025 edition of the FBA Family Business Panel Discussion. Thank you to all our listeners and viewers who have tuned in for this first segment on Radio Entrepreneurs. Be sure to check out parts 2 and 3 of this discussion to hear more, and click subscribe just below the video if you're on YouTube, or follow if you are listening on one of our podcast platforms to stay up to date on all our postings as they go live. If you're a fan of our videos, please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and press the bell button. It helps immensely. Radio Entrepreneurs is also active on LinkedIn, so be sure to follow our page there as well for more business advice and discussions. Until next time, goodbye and thanks for listening. We'll be back with more stories on Radio Entrepreneurs.